Dillon Brooks, like him or hate him, he is a touch point for a shift in NBA culture. And not for the reasons you think, not because he's a wannabe villain of the league, but because of what he represents. So to give us a little bit of a metric, the latest undeniable touch point in NBA culture is Steph Curry, changing the way we view the three and how effective you can be at that range. But when it comes to the topic of culture of this game, it always gets tossed on the player's shoulders. We're getting too soft because we're shooting too much, even though it's increased interest in the league and the game is more fast-paced. Next, we're told it's because the players can't be loyal. They're always chasing the money. So that's why we need to increase the amount of money small market teams need to give to these players. But that never works out. Look at KD. And when players want to stay, regardless of the money, basically, they're stabbed in the back by the governors, no matter the level of commitment they've given to the organization. But in the grand scheme of things, no matter the amount of arguments you could have against the earlier points, one thing stands true. Something in the league is different, and it can't just be the players. Now, to me, the answer is pretty clear. I'm not saying this is the entirety of the blame pie, but I think a majority of it falls on the governors of the league. And why is that? It's because they have the biggest stake in the success of this league. They're the ones who reap the benefits of it or have to eat the loss of it. They'll be the ones paying the new salary tax, not the players. Their influence is strong enough that if they wanted it, they could implement a 4-point line. The players would have to go through a lot of more hurdles to even be considered to have that kind of influence. No matter how much CP and Kobe wanted to play together, they couldn't. Why? Because of the governors. And isn't it interesting, after the recent weird things that have been happening there, like the racism and all of that, now Mark Cuban and Michael Jordan sell within months of each other. There's something in the governor's water. Side note, congrats to them for getting the bag, though. And when I talk about top dog and governors, you don't even have to look too far up. It's still, the problem can still be on the court. Look at the Spurs. They are a pillar of the NBA culture. If you're familiar with basketball at all, you know they represent class and respect, and everyone respects them. But look no further than 2018, when Kawhi was first dealing with his injury from Zaza. In sports, trust is important. I need you as a coach to be able to trust you to run the right plays, to make the right decision. If you're a clutch player, to bring the game home. But as a player, I also need you as my coach that I've won a championship with to trust me when I say I'm not ready. You don't even have to look too far. Just last year, 2017, during this dispute, Isaiah Thomas went through the same thing, right? Trusted the team. We see where he's at. And not only was there a break in trust, there was also, maybe for the first time, a leak from the Spurs clubhouse, which never happens, at least since the studious Greg Popovich took over. The pillars of the Spurs culture, or at least Tony Parker, were against Kawhi, their teammate. He was so impactful that even LeBron hated playing against him. Check this out.
Kawhi Leonard checks in the game as LeBron James is shooting a free throw.
That face?
He was not happy about that one. He was not enthusiastic. Now, if I was coming in the game, he would have thrown a parade. And so, the greatness of Kawhi Leonard.
For me personally, that dispute worked out, to say the least, but we still lost DeMar, who's Mr. Toronto, and we always will wish him the best for what he did and what he represents for Toronto. But even his situation, where someone considered arguably the best general manager in sports still stabbed him in the back, and firing the coach of the year he won it, after LeBron left, and was the main source of our problem too, in Mr. Dwayne Casey. When you have another pillar in the NBA, like the Memphis Grizzlies, who give their cornerstone players a heads up.
One heck of a player, and we're going to need good players going forward. And so I don't understand why Mike is in it anyways.
You know, Robert called me yesterday just to make me aware that they were going to go about doing this. So Outside of that, man, I hadn't really thought about it or heard much about it. Yesterday was the first time we had talked about it. Previously, we hadn't talked about trades or myself or Mark or anybody else involved in any of that stuff. So yesterday was the first time of me being aware of it. It was just making us, aware that we would be, our names would be thrown out there. Not that one of us or both of us are going to be gone by next Tuesday or by All-Star break. So, I feel just as good about being here as the next person. So I
know what you're thinking, right? The Memphis Grizzlies, the ones who've been wilding out these last 2 years. Yes, the Memphis Grizzlies. They were a pillar of NBA class just as much as the Spurs. And a major reason for that drastic change has to come from the top. The players, like I said in my earlier point, can only do what ownership and management allows, what they enable. And the original general manager, Chris Wallace, was a part of that grinding Grizzlies culture. But unfortunately, that started to die out with the change of Steph Curry, that touch point we touched on earlier. And that brought in Zach to breathe new life into the Grizzlies, effectively making him the new safeguard of the Memphis Grizzlies culture. When it comes to the importance of keeping a strong culture, the freshest memory of that is the Brooklyn Nets. Y'all remember this team. And you guys remember this one. What happens when you enable players to do whatever they want without being checked? Side note, don't get me wrong, I know other things played a factor in this breakdown, but you get the gist of what I'm going for. These last two major moves by the Grizzlies highlights the different managerial styles. So old management would call their star players, let them know, hey, our time has run out, we're moving on, let's discuss this. While the new management is announcing that they're releasing the player they enabled to act out of hand. So to recap everything, the media always has this narrative that the players are the ones messing up the league, right? When they have a role in it. But more importantly, the management/governing body has the bigger impact on the game. They're the ones who make different rules, like the Allen Iverson rule, the overhand, the dressing. They're the ones who are eating up this tight salary cap that's coming up, where everyone's demanding this big money they created to help reward the loyalty that rarely works. Well, besides the Bucks and the Nuggets. But at the same time, they're the same ones who benefit and are able to control the narrative to put it on the players to remove the distraction from them and those weird general managers they had to oust recently. And maybe that's why Mark Cuban and Michael Jordan jumped ship. So all that together is why I believe Dillon Brooks is a touch point in NBA culture, where teams seem to be looking for fool's gold, just a quick win, not putting too much thought into it, just at the cost of a good team culture, to hope that a random assortment of superstars will help them win that year and throw away 15 draft picks away. So being to see this butterfly effect. And hopefully that tribute the Grizzlies did for him was a peace offering. But yeah, what do you think?